So sticking with that theme of strokes, okay, which is what I want to have a look at you with tonight, okay, various things involving strokes. Okay. I want to start off with this just here, okay. So this is just a simple arc stroke, so half a circle, chopped in half. Just realised my phone's still on, so I'm just going to turn that off, thank you very much. So half a circle, just there, with a straightforward stroke across it, and I'm going to apply a default gradient across there. Okay, so the way I'm actually doing that, I'm actually using the keyboard to do that. I don't know whether you know, but I can switch focus between the fill and stroke, okay, by using my X key like so. So I've got the fill in front there, and now I've got the stroke in front, and whichever one of those is in front will receive other commands from either other parts of the interface or the keyboard. Three keys that you need to know, and this works also inside of InDesign exactly the same way as it works inside of Illustrator because they share a common ground engine. Okay, the comma key will give you a solid fill, so now you can see I've got a solid white fill just there. Okay, the period key will give me a gradient fill, and the slash key will give me a fill of none. So I can very, very quickly draw objects like that. So I just hit the comma key, that gives me the default gradient at the current time, okay, which is white through black there, like so. I think I just nullified the stroke at the same time I did. I sent it back to a 1 point stroke, so I'm just going to make it a bit wider across like so. So now I've got a stroke spanning one side of the gradient to the other. Okay. And what I'm going to do is switch to the gradient panel over here on the right hand side, and this is how I can define how the stroke, right, is or how the gradient is applied to the stroke. So at the moment it's applying the gradient within the stroke, just there. Okay, I can also set it to apply along the stroke, so now the gradient goes from white on the right hand side, follows the contour of the stroke across, okay, to the other side, like so, and also get the gradient to apply across the stroke, like that. So you can see now that's going from black on the inside out to white on the outside. Makes it very easy to achieve results such as rainbows. If I just go to the loader area of my swatches panel, so that's down in the bottom left hand corner just here, I'll click there and I'm going to come out to gradients and choose spectrums down the bottom here. Just going to choose this RGB spectrum from there, like so, and you can see with just a click, right, I've drawn a rainbow like so. It's applying across the stroke from side to side. Now people often want to get to grips in our courses. We do a 201 and 301 course that invites people to get to grips with drawing with meshes, and there's some really, really good photorealistic stuff that is achieved with meshes, but accessing meshes can be kind of interesting, yeah, 'cause it's a little bit of a steep learning curve and can be quite tricky. This new feature actually makes that more accessible than ever before, because if you expand this stroke, okay, if I just expand this out like so, you can see it actually expands out to a mesh. Now this has got an awful lot of mesh points on it just here, but it is a mesh nonetheless. Okay, and I've used that in illustrations such as this kettle here. You can see that? A stroke that this began as a stroke just here, which was then expanded outwards, and then I was able to build on that by selecting various nodes within the mesh. So I'm just using my direct selection tool here, although equally I could use the lasso tool like that, and then applying a colour from there on into that point, and that will then blend out to the other points on the mesh. And so you can end up with stuff that very, very quickly looks photorealistic. And all of these parts on here, such as the reflection in the lid, this bit here is exactly the same as this part here, again made with a gradient along a stroke. Okay, that's then turned into a group, and just down here this reflection is exactly the same group but with an envelope mesh applied to it to distort it into the contours presented by the lid. So you can see it's actually not too difficult. It's about disassembling, but that's what we do in our classes. We teach you how to disassemble this stuff, how to break it down into components that you manage, and that makes this magical looking stuff, yeah, is the thing that really impresses and gets you the job. Okay, but it all began in this particular instance, this illustration, okay, from a single stroke with a gradient applied to it. It was a dark colour on the inside, the same colour on the outside, and then a slightly darker colour in the middle, and everything after that was used by addressing those nodes inside of there. Okay? So very, very powerful feature, and like I say, making an even more powerful feature gives you a step into using that. That, of course, works really, really well when you combine it with other features. Sorry.
It's okay.
Are you sure?
How did you get to the mesh? Is it from object down?
Yeah, and expand the appearance of it. Yeah, expand it, and it basically forms out into a mesh from there. Absolutely. When you combine it with other features, so these fireworks just here, okay, are created from a single stroke. Each one of these fireworks, if I just show you this just now, is just an individual stroke, like so. Okay, and that's built. Here's the stroke just here, like so. Okay, and so it's just a simple line drawn at an angle, like this. Okay, and then with a gradient applied to the stroke, you can see it's taking on the gradient of the stroke above it, then pulled out to a certain width. So if I just expand that out to a width at the moment, just there, I'm not going to recreate exactly the same stroke, but I'll get close enough to it, and then applying that either across the stroke or along the stroke. I think with this one here, I just went with the default. And then I use the width tool, okay, to modulate the width of the stroke down like that. You can see I can pull this out, right, make all of these different parts, and you can see with just a little bit more effort in there, I can create this kind of shape. Okay, and once I've done that, once I've created this shape with the gradient running through it, so you get that nice soft burst edge just there, all I did was use a series of appearance attributes. I'll just drag the appearance panel out here so you can see it. Okay, so I simply applied a blur to it to soften it up. So if I turn the blur off and on, you can see it doesn't do that much. It's just a tiny effect from there. And then I feathered it, which gave the edges the softness that it needed to sort of dissolve into the atmosphere as it was. And then after that, I put a transform on there, okay, that brought it out into like this flower shape. Okay, and that's all working from that one fill. Here's the stroke on top here. And then I put a warp on top of that, and then a pucker and bloat to bring that forward. And then one further level, once I'd got the stroke out from there, okay, if I just pick up the stroke just here, I'd got a second transform in there. There's a second transform in there somewhere, I can't find it at the moment. But just basically pull it out, dial it out to those things, and instantly you've got fireworks. So that gradient on strokes feature works really, really well. Let me just park that back down there. In fact, I managed to make it work so well. Did any of you see the Creative Week live stuff that went on during summer last year, June last year? Any of you see that? The live broadcast from Adobe? Their marketing worked really well, didn't it? Yeah? Okay. Note to Adobe, marketing didn't work. Okay. Where I was challenged in front of a live TV audience to create something in 3 hours using just strokes. And because they put me in a TV studio outside of Tower Bridge, this is what I came up with. So this is sort of an example of how far you can go with this particular feature. Well, I was looking right out the window. It was right there in front of me. All right, it's not the best one I've ever done, but I had 3 hours in which to do it. So in fairness, I'll show you how many strokes there are in here. There you go. The only rectangle that exists in that illustration is this one that holds the sky, and that's because of the stroke limit that Illustrator places. Do you know what the stroke limit is in total weight? No? 1,000 points. It won't create you a thing over 1,000 points. That's its maximum sort of weight. Otherwise, I would have done it 100% out of strokes on there. But even the towers, everything like that, everything you can see there, there is not one on the type in the corner of the copyright notice. But other than that, there's nothing in there that isn't formed of a stroke. I can take them out for you if you want. There's sets of overlaid things, so there's 2 sets of towers. But that in itself, that tower, the sort of stone part of the tower, if you like, that is one stroke there completely. If I unlock all of those layers, just so I can access them, okay, and just ungroup them just for a second, we'll just take that lot out. And there, just disassemble it. It'll take a moment to redraw because obviously it's quite busy. And there. Never worked with children, animals or strokes. And actually, here you are, you can see I only drew half of the bridge. I just reflected it across once I'm done. So we'll teach you how to cheat really, really well. Yeah, that's the other thing we can do for you. So just create a new document there and park that in it. So here you are, breaking it down still further. There's that tower made out of that one stroke. Can you see that? So it's a gradient that applies along the stroke. There's the gradient, just there. That gives the illusion of the contours of the tower. The stroke itself has an arrowhead on the end. Yeah, so it's just a simple arrowhead. If I show you the stroke panel now, okay, and just expand that to the full set of options. It will collapse first and then expand. Okay, so there you are. There's an arrowhead on the top of the stroke. That's what creates that just there. Okay. After that, it is a matter of a width profile drawn with the width tool, exactly as I did the firework, just slightly more precisely, pulling them in closer together, which gives you the steeper angles rather than the smooth blends in between those things. Okay, that gives you all of that stuff. See, it's just supreme cheating. But that's what this game is about, isn't it? It's about talking and getting the stuff, not talking, about getting the stuff done, yeah, as quickly as you can, because we're meant to make a profit at doing it, right? That's what we're all doing it for, yeah, to make money. We're not doing it just for the love of our fellow human beings. Yeah, if we did, we'd use chalk on the pavement and say nice stuff. Okay, there you are. All very, very simple when you break that down. Okay. So the other thing concerning strokes that I just wanted to show you is perhaps one of the most requested things is how do I make stuff look a little bit less computer-y. 26 years ago, when Illustrator was created, everybody like myself was working at a drawing board with a rotring pen and a paintbrush, yeah, trying to. When our first day in college was spent drawing lines with a paintbrush over a ruler angled at my drawing board until I could rule a line of a consistent thickness with a brush. Yeah, only people over about 40 some odd can even vaguely remember doing that sort of thing. That's how old I am, right? But everything was slightly fuzzy in those days, and Illustrator came out, and then suddenly Illustrator could create super sharp, crisp lines just by pulling stuff out. So, for example, if I use the line tools inside of here, I can do that, and I know it is super, super crisp. But we've become attuned to super, super crisp, and we're suspect of super, super crisp. And now what we want to see is we want to see hand-drawn stuff. We want to see things that look, yeah, more as if there was some art involved in doing it. And this sort of thing, yeah, looks as if I've sat and sketched it, doesn't it? Yeah. But it's actually very, very simple. I started off with a tool like the line tool. So if I just close a couple of these things up, actually, because I've got an awful lot of stuff there. So started off with a thing like the line tool, like so. So a single stroke across like that. Then I switched to the warp tool. Shift R gets you the warp tool, and I just literally pulled parts of that line about, maybe to a slightly lesser degree than that, although sometimes it works even better if you pull it backwards and forwards. So I just created a stroke like so, at whatever, a given weight. I'll make that slightly heavier, just there. And then turn that into a brush simply by clicking and dragging that into the brushes panel like so. You do know you can do that, right? You don't have to have the panel in front to drag it in. Yeah, all you need to do is be patient, drag it over the tab, and it will switch to that. And as soon as you drag it into there, it will ask you what sort of brush you want to create. So here I'm going to create an art brush. That means art that is stretched along between vectors. Okay, like so. So if I select that, I then get the options for how that's going to be created. Someone's having a great time down there. We should all go down there and find out what they're doing down there. So there you are. This is how it's going to be applied. It will be stretched along there. I can specify various different ways for how that's stretched. Okay, and then if I create an object like so, I can simply apply that stroke to it, and already it looks that little bit less computer, and I can do other things to it as well. I'm not limited to just having the one stroke on the object, and I can change other things about it. So some of these things just here, for example, right, they're created by a single stroke, but in a slightly different way. So if I just take that just for a minute and remove that, so I'm just going to set this up before I draw it, just to make it a bit easier to see. You can see this all right at the back here. I'm going to draw just a stroke across here like so. Okay. Then I'm going to switch to my warp tool and pull that around quite a lot, like so. So just to bend all that stuff. I'm trying to leave the ends more or less horizontal. It's not really important. So once I've done that and I've pulled that around so it's got quite a bit of distortion in it, I'm actually going to use a command that was initially designed to align anchor points before joining them together. Okay, and that's the average command, which you can use by Alt Command J or Alt Control J. That would get the average command. And here I just want to average these over the horizontal axis like so. Click OK. And you can see now it's made all of the vectors line up horizontally. Yeah? Any power expressed by the curves in between them stays on. So you can see I've still got that lovely bendy curve inside of there. Then I'm going to switch to the reflect tool. O gets me to the reflect tool. I'm going to hit return to access the reflect dialog when I can find it. It's just over here inside of there, and I can get that to reflect in a certain way. I just get preview there, so I can flip that over or horizontally or vertically. Okay, so I'm just going to choose to flip that horizontally and copy it. Actually, I wanted to flip that the other way, so I'm just going to invoke that again, go for vertical, like that. So there you are, I've got a nice mess of a stroke going on there. All I need to do is get that bunch of stuff and bring that in and create a new art brush out of that. That's just fine. Let me just clear that out of there. And then I can just draw something like so. If I just draw a slightly smaller star than this. So I'm just using my arrow keys here to change the number of star points. I'm going to hold down the command key and access the inner outer radius controls. That's perfect. Just do like that. So there you are. Draw that. Apply something sketchy to it. You can see already that looks a little bit less computer. And if I varied that by adding other strokes on top at differing weights, then you get that sort of biro sketching look that makes it that much more attractive. Okay? And there you go. That's all from me. I'm going to hand you over to Mark Gatter now. He's going to wow you with some awesome 3D Photoshop stuff. Thank you very much. Cheers.